All right, you got the Mighty Manfred with you now as we begin today's coolest conversations. And on the phone with me is Myke Scavone, lead singer in the Doughboys. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing all right, and I'm doing better now that I'm here on the phone with you.
Oh, excellent. Hey, so the Doughboys, Plainfield, New Jersey's finest. You guys were together back in the 60s originally, and then you reformed much later. And man, I just have to tell you that a lot of these bands from the 60s, they reform. There's some nostalgia there, and it's great to see them in that sense, but it never lives up to today. Something is just not there, the magic in there. But you guys are such the exception. It's just as much fire as ever. And what do you think accounts for that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think a lot of it has to do with, first of all, the fact that other than our lead guitar player who passed away in 2004, we've maintained the same guys that we played with back in the 60s in high school. And I think the other thing is that the band really has progressed. In high school, like most bands, we were just a cover band. We didn't really do a lot of original stuff. And once Gar joined the band, he just really pushed us to start writing and start recording our own stuff and just playing our own stuff. Truthfully, recording wasn't so much of an option at that point. We weren't really even thinking about that. Mm-hmm. But he joined before we put out that first CD. And I think that's really it, is that we've never lost our love for the kind of music that we played in the 60s. And so when we write now, we write with all of that in mind. You know, we think about the Yardbirds, the Animals, the Who, the Kinks, the Stones. You know, those were all our influences back then.
So did all you guys, after the Doughboys went their separate ways, did all you guys continue to work with music? I mean, I know you did, and I think Richard as well, but the bass player, Mike, it's Mike Caruso,
Mike,
right? Did he continue to play? Were all you guys still active in music or not?
Oh yeah, Mike never stopped playing, and same thing with Willie. Matter of fact, Willie, our original guitar player, and Mike and Gar had a country band together back in I guess it was the 80s and 70s and 80s and into the 90s even. As you know, we reformed in 2000. And that's why it was kind of an easy transition to bring Gar into the band when Willie passed away. But Mike never stops playing. I mean, if the Doughboys aren't gigging, Mike is out there doing open mics and playing wherever he can, anytime he can. That's his life. I mean, he just loves it, and you can't stop him from playing.
Good. So back in the 60s, when was it? About what year did you guys actually first start playing together? And I know there weren't any albums back then, but you did put out some singles, a couple of 45s. How did you form? Where did you play? And what led to making those first couple of records?
Well, Richie and Mike first started the band back in 1964. And I joined in 1965. By that time, they had brought Willie into the band. And myself and another guy, Mike Farina, were in an alternate band, or I should say a rival band called the Apollos. And we used to fight for gigs at high school dances all the time. We would play against each other, and sometimes they would win, and sometimes we would win. They were called the Ascots back then. And when my piano player, who was the lead singer, I was a drummer back then in the Apollos, by the way, when he left to go to college, I was talking with Richie one day, just sitting in the backyard of our bass player's house, and he asked me what I was going to do now that the band broke up. And I said, well, I'm looking to sing. I really want to get out front. I'm tired of being behind the drums. And he said, well, we're looking for a singer. You want to try out for our band? And so that's how I ended up joining the Ascots, who became the Doughboys. As far as the singles, Rhoda Mendelbaum was our first single, which was written by a guy named Tony. Oh, man, I wish I could remember his last name. I'll remember it before I'm done here. But anyway, that was the culmination of a year battle of the bands on Zachary Disco Team, which was a local kind of American bandstand that was televised on UHF channel out of the Mosque Theater in Newark. And that that Battle of the Bands lasted a year, and the winner got to open up for the Beach Boys, which we did, and I got in a fight with Dennis Wilson, which was a lot of fun. And
What, did you take him out?
actually, he came up from behind me and lifted me up, and by the time I got a few swings in, all the road crew was on top of us. We were actually on stage playing when he attacked me. So
Now, why did he attack you?
Because we were, I don't know if you ever saw us do Bo Diddley.
Yeah, you take out the
Yeah, we take out the floor toms. Right. Well, what happened is me and Richie were out there, and I forgot my floor tom that day. So the Buckinghams were also on the bill. We asked them if we could use their tom. They said no. And then we asked the road manager for the Beach Boys if we could use their tom. And they said, sure, Dennis won't mind. Well, I was the guy that was using Dennis's tom, and the maracas, we play them with maracas, and my maraca hit the rim and broke and shattered all over the place. So I turned it around, and I'm beating on a drum with the handle just to keep the show going. And apparently he thought I had damaged his floor tom, and he was backstage, and he just flew out and jumped on me. It was just crazy. So, it was quite a tussle right in front of the audience, which was very interesting.
Made for a great show.
Oh, it was a great show. It's a great memory, if nothing else.
And so you won this Battle of the Bands, and that's when you did the gig, and you were able to put out the first single or the second single?
Yeah, well, what happened is that was part of the prizes. We got to a record contract with Bell Records, which was owned by Amy Malla, whoever they were back then. It was a small record company. I mean, Mitch Ryder was on that label at that point. They were the only group that I can think of that was actually known back then that was on that label. And Rhoda Mendelbaum was a very interesting song because it was just a guy playing piano. And then they just brought in writers. Our second single was actually a song written by Bob Gaudio and Bob Crew, originally, I think, recorded by the Four Seasons. And that was very interesting because we were a rock band, and here we are doing a Four Seasons type song, and it was very interesting for me to sing it, doing falsetto stuff. And but actually, it was from that era. It was actually one of my favorite recordings because it was just so different for us.
Well, why did the Doughboys end in the '60s, and then what was the spark that got you to reform?
Well, we ended just because things fell apart. I mean, truthfully, the way the band fell apart, first, Mike Farina, the other guy I had mentioned, we decided we didn't really need a second guitar. If you think about how things were progressing during the 60s, you had the 5-piece band, and then you had the who came out. It was only a 4-piece band, with the lead singer. So we kind of thought we wanted to go that direction. And then, of course, from there, you had Hendrix and the Experience, and there's only 3 pieces and no lead singer. So I was the next one to be eliminated. And then Mike Caruso was eliminated after that because Willie began to play bass on pedals while he played guitar. He was an amazing talent, that guy. And so it was just Richie and Willie, and they changed the name to the Big Little at that point. And then, the thing just kind of faded. It was, we went through what we could go through, and we were done.
So what made you get back together then?
Well, actually, we never planned to get back together. What happened was Richie's wife, Nancy, had called me and asked me if I knew how to find the other guys from the Doughboys and if we'd be willing to do a surprise show for Richie's birthday. I'm not going to say how old he was at the time, but at any rate, she managed to get Arlene's Grocery in Soho to let us have it on I think it was a Friday night at 7 o'clock, gave us an hour to do a set. So we just came down here, and because I played drums and because it was supposed to be a surprise for Richie, we just rehearsed, about 10 songs that we used to do when we were in high school. We did some Yardbirds, some Stones, a bunch of other stuff. And so that was it. It was supposed to be one on, and done. And we went and we got there. Richie came and saw the Doughboys on the marquee and was like, what the heck is this about? And he got behind the drums. And it was very strange because I hadn't sung lead with a band, sheesh, I don't even know how long, probably a good 20 years at that point, if not more. But everything just felt so natural. And what happened, and this is odd because the owner of Orleans asked us if we would come back and do another gig. And then we said, well, okay, why not? And then what happened from there, believe it or not, the next place we played was Manitoba's, Handsome Dick Manitoba's little club over there on Avenue B.
Well, imagine that.
Yeah, right. And it was this second gig that we played live. It was this little tiny, well, you know this place. I don't know if you've ever been there. We were stuck in this corner. It was all we could do to even stand there. And that was, and then one thing led to another. We were at the Sidewalk Cafe. We got asked to play from one place to the next, and it just kind of evolved.
And you guys play fairly regularly, even still now, right?
Yeah, actually, this past year has been a little slow for us by design because we really are putting a lot of work into this next album. This is going to be a lot different than the last few albums that we put out. This is actually our 4th studio album.
Yeah, we're going to mention that since reforming, you guys have been really prolific. I mean, you didn't have an album in the 60s, but I think you've certainly made up for that. 3 studio albums, a live album, as you mentioned. This is the 4th long player that you're working on, right?
Right, yeah. We're hoping to be able to keep it down to 14 songs, but it's getting tough. Well,
you're easing out some singles. I mean, right before we started speaking together, we came out of your version of Tears of a Clown. That's your latest single, the Smokey Robinson, the Miracle song. Why did you guys choose to cover that tune?
Well, I've always loved the song. Obviously, Smokey Robinson was just such amazing talent. And, it was one of those songs that, I've heard a lot of different covers of it, but I've never heard anybody do it with any kind of edge. And I didn't know how it would come out when we first started playing around with it. And, we just liked the way it sounded. We liked the way we felt that we made it our own. And because we knew this album was going to take a little bit longer than normal, we wanted to have something out there. And, after the last single being Yo-Yo, which was also a cover, we thought, well, let's just see. Let's put it out and see, throw it against the wall and see what sticks, kind of. But we really love the song. I mean, the song is just, it's an amazing classic. I mean, lyrically, the thing almost brings tears to my eyes when I think about the whole background of that song.
Well, you mentioned that, and of course, I'm looking at the cover of it right now. You done up in clown makeup there, and I can see the tears coming down.
Yeah, they were real.
So, you made mention of, the previous single being a cover, a version of the Joe South's Yo-Yo, and the Osmonds had a hit with that. So on the new album, that's all original material, and so you have singles doing covers and no covers on the album, or are there cover songs on the new album coming up?
The new album's going to be all original stuff. It's going to be some different stuff too for us because we have our typical, American blues rock stuff. We have a lot of the very garagey sound stuff, some Stonesy sounding stuff, some Who sounding stuff, and then there's some really mild, mellow, romantic stuff.
All right, Myke, thanks so much for speaking with me today on our Coolest Conversations.
It's been my pleasure. It really is. It's great. I really appreciate everything you guys over there at the Underground Garage have done for us. I mean, I am indebted to Little Steven forever, and so is the band. We just feel like he's given us new life.
Well, you just keep making great music, and it's no problem. I'm counting on that from you. So we're going to go out now with a song off one of your albums, I'm Not Your Man, on Little Steven's Underground Garage.